Introduction. On Christmas Eve in 1945, a quiet night in Fayetteville, West Virginia, turned into an unimaginable nightmare for the Sodder family. A fire erupted in their home, and while parents George and Jenny Sodder, along with 4 of their children, managed to escape, 5 of their children were never seen again. Their remains were never found in the ashes.
The Vanishing of the Sodder Children, a true crime mystery. A Christmas Eve fire, 5 missing children, and a case that has haunted a family for decades. What really happened to the Sodder children? Were they victims of a tragic accident or something far more sinister? This is the mystery of the vanishing Sodder children.
Chapter 1. The Sodder Family. George and Jenny Sodder were an Italian-American couple living in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Together, they raised 10 children in a tight-knit home. George was a successful businessman, known for his strong opinions, particularly about Benito Mussolini, Italy's fascist dictator. Some say this made him enemies. On December 24, 1945, the Sodder home was filled with holiday cheer. The children were excited, decorations were up, and the family was preparing for Christmas. But no one knew that this would be the last night they would all be together.
Chapter 2. The Night of the Fire. At around 12:30 a.m., the Sodders were fast asleep when a mysterious phone call woke Jenny. A woman's voice, unfamiliar and eerie, asked for a name Jenny didn't recognize, then let out a strange laugh before hanging up. Jenny thought it was a prank, but soon something far worse happened. Moments later, Jenny noticed smoke creeping into the house. Flames were consuming the downstairs office and panic set in. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children managed to escape, but 5 of the Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and Betty, were trapped inside. Desperate, George tried to re-enter the home, but the staircase was engulfed in flames. He ran outside, attempting to use his ladder to climb into the upper rooms, but the ladder was missing. He then tried to start his trucks to drive them near the house for a rescue attempt, but mysteriously, neither of them would start, despite working perfectly the day before. With no way to reach his children, George could only watch in horror as the fire devoured their home. The fire department was called, but due to a series of delays, firefighters didn't arrive until nearly 8 hours later. By then, the house was reduced to ashes. Chapter 3. The Missing Remains.
But then, something strange happened. No human remains were found in the ashes, not a single bone, no fragments, nothing. Experts claimed that even in the most intense fires, bones do not fully incinerate. Yet here, the 5 children had seemingly vanished without a trace. Jenny Sodder, desperate for answers, conducted her own experiments. She burned animal bones in a furnace, only to find they never completely turned to ash. This led the family to question, did their children really perish in the fire? Or had something else happened to them?
Chapter 4. Strange Clues and Suspicious Events. The missing remains weren't the only mystery. Strange events leading up to the fire raised more questions. A mystery man had been seen watching the Sodder children just weeks before. A life insurance salesman had also visited George, warning that his house would burn down because of his anti-Mussolini stance. Then there was the missing ladder, later found tossed down an embankment 75 feet away. The phone line, deliberately cut. The non-working trucks, tampered with. And most chilling of all, some witnesses claimed they saw the children alive after the fire. Chapter 5. Sightings and Theories.
Over the years, reports surfaced of the Sodder children being spotted across the country. A woman in Charleston, West Virginia, claimed to have served them breakfast days after the fire. Another said they were staying in an orphanage in Florida. Then, in 1967, a mysterious envelope arrived at the Sodder home. Inside was a photograph of a man with a cryptic note reading, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Elil boys, a 90132 or 35 inches. The Sodders believed this was their missing son Louis, now an adult. But what did the message mean? Who sent it? And if Louis was alive, where were his siblings?
Chapter 6. What really happened? To this day, no one knows the truth. Some theories suggest that the Sodder children were kidnapped and raised by another family. Others believe it was a mafia-related abduction, possibly tied to George's outspoken political views. Another theory? Human trafficking. Some investigators speculate that the children may have been sold into illegal adoption rings. The Sodder parents never stopped searching. They put up a billboard along Route 16, displaying their children's photos and offering a reward. But despite their efforts, the mystery was never solved. Chapter 7. The Legacy of the Sodder Mystery.
Jenny Sodder wore black for the rest of her life, mourning her missing children. George died in 1969, heartbroken that he never found them. Their surviving children continued the search, but as time passed, the case faded into legend. Was it an accident or an elaborate cover-up? If the children survived, why did they never come home? And what really happened on that fateful Christmas Eve? Even now, nearly 80 years later, the mystery of the Sodder children remains one of the most chilling, unsolved cases in American history. But what do you think? Were they victims of fire or something far more sinister? Let us know in the comments below.